This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Minis.
Welcome to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Minis Sr. Stronger Than My Father podcast is your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood. The lack of fathers is the biggest pandemic that no one wants to talk about. Our guests are individuals that have been impacted positively or negatively by fatherhood. This podcast is produced by Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. If you're in need of a podcast producer or some voiceover work, reach out to Jim McCarthy. And as you see, we're not at my normal studio today. We're at Jim McCarthy's studio. So thank you, Jim, for allowing us to host another Stronger Than My Father podcast here. Let's get to work. My guest is a friend I've been knowing for about 2 years.
Yep.
2 years now. Individual who's passionate about fatherhood. So I said, let me get him on my podcast. So I'd like to introduce my friend, Mr. Daniel Cruz, a mortgage advisor.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to talk about fatherhood, and we're going to dive into some mortgage questions that I may ask, or maybe some of my listeners want to know about. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's tell my audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your childhood, dealing with fatherhood, and let's dive into that first.
All right. So Daniel Cruz, I've been in Middle Tennessee for about 11 years by way of growing up in Florida.
Okay.
Was born out in Ohio, and we moved when I was about 8 or 9 from Ohio for a better opportunity in Florida. I am one of one kids. My parents figured that I was enough trouble for one family, which was quite the contrast. Growing up in a Hispanic family, I had tons of cousins who had tons of brothers and sisters, and it was just me and my parents. My parents struggled a bit back in Ohio, and were maybe a little bit too honest and adult in regards to conversation. So I grew up a little bit quicker than maybe some people would like their kids to grow up. Yeah. But one thing I will say about my dad is he was pretty transparent on the highs and lows of what the family was going through, and I love him for his honesty. And as a father myself now, I don't keep anything from my kids, but maybe there's some conversations that I'm going to wait until later on in life to have with my own kids. Yeah. That being said, hey, as we all know, as fathers, you got to figure it out on the fly. It's like trying to change a flat tire, going down the highway, you try to do your best with what you got. And one thing I will say is that my dad was always honest with me, but, he was also pretty guarded when it came to emotions or just, hey, the attaboys and what have you. Yeah. And so, always made me want to strive a little bit harder to kind of get that recognition, what have you. So as far as me with my own boys, I got 2 boys, Jack and Miles, ages 9 and 6. It's a lot different approach. I let them know, hey, when you mess up, here's how you do better. And whether that's messing up on purpose or whether life has its day-to-day failures, but they're not terminal, So with me, my approach is a little bit different. I let my boys know that, Dad's here for them. Dad loves them, But I also let them know that there's expectations put upon them, not just as kids, but definitely as, just people of society. And, there are some things that my dad kind of, he instilled a really strong work ethic in me, which I loved. Yeah. But I think one of the things, that I never quite got was, hey, how do you deal with being an individual in society? And one thing I will say is most people who know me, I might be a little bit more social than what some people might care for.
Yeah.
But I think that just came from just having the enough runway to be myself.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So I'm listening to you, and you sound like you didn't get maybe affection.
Right.
Most, my dad's not a big affectionate person.
That's right.
So I assume because he did, provided for us, that was love.
Right.
But I know society is different now. So me and you both married fathers.
Right.
And it seemed like our wives want to hear I love you more.
Right.
And so in my house, we didn't hear that all the time. We just worked. We was a great blended, happy family. And we didn't hear that. So for you, you're saying you really worked hard just to get that validation from your dad. Did you feel like you got that from him as you grew up in life, and as you got older, you got that validation from your dad? Say, "Hey, Daniel, I'm proud of you." Did you ever get that?
Yeah. Ironically enough, as I got older, and especially like I moved out pretty young.
Yeah.
Nothing. There was no beef or no riff in the family. It was just a matter of I saw, some of my cousins who are older than me. They're out on their own, and I want, it looked like fun, so I wanted to try it out. But yeah, it wasn't until like I was doing well in my jobs, or until I graduated school, until I started putting myself through college, that my dad was like. He's like, yeah, here's that validation. I was like, better late than never, right? And it was good though. I wouldn't say he got softer, but I would say as I got older and he saw me, needing much less than I did growing up. He would actually say, "Hey, I'm proud of you."
Yeah.
The I love yous didn't come till later on in life, but hey, better late than never.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's important for young men, you as a young, growing up with your dad, do you think that's important now more than ever? Me and you both are fathers, that we tell our sons that we love them. Because I don't, my affection is different. I do hug my boys a lot. How you doing? My oldest is different.
Yeah.
Because he's 15 and he's taller as me now.
Yeah.
And almost at the same shoe size. I actually bought him some shoes yesterday and realized he's close to my shoe size. So for him, it's different. My youngest one, I grab a little bit more. My oldest, we just fist bump all the time.
Right.
So what do you think? The question is the tools. What tools are you passing down to your kids that your dad put in you?
I will say, even though that he didn't say the words, my dad was big into bear hugs, and us actually just kind of wrestling around. That was by the end of it, it was a high five or a fist bump. Like, all right, like you keep working on one of these days, you'll get dad. And I'm like, I was like, I just got you. I was like, but I do make it a point to also just let them know that. Even though that I might have to discipline them on something, or there might be a consequence for a way that they might act or talk, or whatever the case may be, that hey, I love you, and that's why I'm doing this. This is why you're getting a consequence, is because I need to teach you correctly, so that when I'm not around, or and I don't just mean when that fateful day comes. I just mean like when I'm not, around you at school, or as you make your way through the world, that you do know that, hey, at the end of the day, I was raised right.
Yeah.
Even though I may forget how to act, I know that somebody told me how to act, and now I need to hopefully put those skills into motion.
Yeah. Well, society now, we see 1 out of 4 homes have a biological father in the home.
Right.
Why do you think it's so important now more than ever, where society is going, that the father is present in the home? And I know it's a murky topic, because sometimes the spouses don't get along, dad has to go away, but me and you both are in the home.
Right.
Why do you think that's so important for my listeners to know, in your opinion, why is it so important for a father to be in the home?
I'm telling you that I've seen within my own family. So, with absolutely no judgment, just my own experience, is that I've seen family members of mine from both sides of my family, which I don't know if I ever expressed this to you. I'm actually, I didn't find out till I was 18, but I'm actually adopted from my father. My father, he adopted me at the age of like 2 or 3.
Your biological father.
So my biological father he went and ran off and joined the army when
wow.
Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah, so my father who raised me actually was my biological father, which kind of gets to my point is, it doesn't just need to be the biological father. A father figure is everything.
Okay.
Right? So my thing was the fact that, but I didn't know that till I was 18. So by the way, it was crazy. Everybody else on all 3 sides of the family knew that I was adopted but myself.
Wow. So hold up, you didn't find out this till you was 18?
Yeah.
Why nobody didn't tell you?
It was the big secret, but
wow.
I joke around, but at the end of the day, it actually made me respect my father more. My father's name is Victor, and he's the one who raised me. Mm-hmm. And even though that we had, when I say we, not me and him, like our family struggled time to time financially, and there's other struggles that most families go through. But at the end of the day, it meant more to me when I found out that he wasn't my biological father, because I'm like, you raise somebody else's kid as your own. Yeah. I mean, I have his last name. Yeah. And I don't know whether or not you had to slip the guy at the hospital at 20 to get your name on the birth certificate or what, but that's just what it was. Mm-hmm. And but the whole point to that is that biological fathers, I feel, are very important. Yeah. But father figures in general, or just having a man for these sons and daughters to look up to is everything. Yeah. Because there are some things that I absolutely know that a man can't give like a mother can, but I also know that of a father to a kid as well. So when I see stuff like that, it reminds me, I remember some of my cousins who never had a father figure. Yeah. And it's shown, or father was kind of not in the picture as much as he would have liked to have been. And them as adults now, it's seen, and I have friends of mine, same thing. So it's very important, and it's just different things that you might not learn from a mother. You might be a strong single mother, but there's still some things that you need a man to come in that role. Yeah, not to say that ladies can't do everything that a man can.
That's a whole different topic. Yeah.
Please don't shut it down.
Yeah, they'll come after me on that one, saying a woman can raise a man.
I'm not saying that women can't. I've got some great friends who mom played both sides of the ball and did an amazing job, but that's not the norm.
Let me ask you this: do you feel any resentment that your biological was not there?
I did. And I'll be honest, for some years, and I remember first time I met him, we now have a good relationship.
Your biological father.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
great.
we now have a great relationship as well. But it was one of those things to where, there's no nice way of saying it. Like, it had to be on my terms if I was even ever going to meet him. Yeah. And then, like I said, I grew up an only child. So I always wanted a brother or sister growing up. Yeah. So to know that somewhere out there was, a brother or sister brother and sister that I had, is kind of what led me to meet him for the first time. And, he was honest with me. He's like, hey, man, I was 18 years old. I was kind of freaking out as a first time dad. And I went and, I joined the Army, and, for full disclosure, my father, Victor, who raised me, he threatened my biological father within an inch of his life if he came around.
Wow.
Came around me and my mom. So, it's good. Wow. Yeah. Wait for the movie, y'all.
This sounds like a movie, man. You got me just really intrigued, mainly because I see a lot of young men have resentment. Yeah. That I'm mad that you wasn't there. And, I'm glad to hear that you're trying to reconcile to hear his side of the story. I think the pain's going to always be there. Right. But what you're doing now is trying to, not so much break a cycle, but you're using your platform now to be a good father to two boys, just like me, 2 boys. Yep. And young boys need their dad. And so I see it more every day with my 2 kids. Even my oldest son, who has a cell phone now, and he's texting, Dad, can you please buy me some new shoes? I want some new running shoes. So when I picked him up from soccer practice, I was like, "Hey, let's go to Nike." I felt so good,
Right.
being able to go buy my son some new pair. Even though he has several pairs of shoes,
Right.
I felt good as a dad to say I took my son and we was able to buy him some shoes. And I think that's why I'm using this platform now to bring more of an awareness. Boys need their dads.
That's right.
And I think girls need even more. But I think for us as men, we have to be there for our sons in all kind of manners because, like you said at the beginning, you got to have uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
So I haven't had the sex talk with my son yet.
Right.
That's 15. And I'm like, when do I have that talk?
Right.
When do I sit him down and talk about those things? And those things is coming sooner than later because he's a freshman. So, and with these cell phones, kids are seeing different things.
Right.
So we parents have to be there to block our kids and the bad stuff that we don't want them to see. But like you said earlier, we got to explain to them why. So the question I want to ask next is that, you said you learned more things you didn't need to learn as a kid too fast. Why did you mention that?
Looking back at it, I would be talking with friends of mine who, at this point in life, maybe we're probably most likely adults, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even early 20s. And I would just, matter of fact, I was like, oh, yeah. And then my parents told me about this, or they explained to me about this. And they're like, how old were you?
Yeah. So like sex or anything like that?
I mean, you could, sex, addiction, poverty, just, instead of just going, hey, don't do these things. They had examples. And they're like, hey, it's like, check out our neighbor from down the block. You know why this and why that. And I'm like, no, I didn't. They're like, that's why. And I'm like, okay, so point taken. But
did that help you in your development? Try to make try not to make those same bad decisions.
It did. I think that maybe the delivery or the way that they could have maybe sent that message. Yeah. But, we also grew up in a different age. We were very matter of fact. It was like, hey, the guy down at the corner who's like missing like 2 of his fingers. Don't do crack. And they're like, oh, it's like, I think I understood what that meant. It was like, I'm going to lose fingers if I start doing drugs. Yeah. You're like, okay. And it was a Scared Straight Home Edition. And
don't you think kids need that? Or you think
absolutely?
But you did say the delivery.
Yeah.
Okay, the delivery. So I don't want to go too overboard.
Right.
Because I'm more blunt about things I say.
I'm
really blunt. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, look, if you make this decision, this was going to happen.
Right.
And my wife will say, Mark, change your delivery.
Yeah.
So now when you mention it, I'm thinking, I just tell you the truth, man. Like I was talking to these kids at my son's school.
Right.
I think when I look back now, I think my delivery was too harsh. And because they're freshmen in high school, and I was really putting my energy in to try to save them.
Right.
And then when I sit back in my car, I was like, man, I probably shouldn't have said this. But for me, is that I'd rather just tell you the truth up front. Right. And I said it was about 150 kids, and I said if I save one kid out of this group, I feel like I did my job. Mm-hmm. To make better decisions, and that's what I'm doing my book on, to help fathers make better decisions so you can save the child. Because the biggest thing as fathers, what we have to do is save our children, right, and protect them the best way we can. But dads, that in the home, you take care of your wife, you take care of these things, then your life and it could be a little bit better. I'm not saying you're going to avoid problems, but it could be a little bit better. Right. So that's what I'm thinking. So to do for people. So let me ask you this: as a father, what has been some challenges you feel like you faced because of your childhood as being a father, or has things been a lot smoother for you being a father?
Wow, that's a good question.
I come with good questions.
Yeah,
man.
I was gonna say it's like it's hard to get me speechless, but that was pretty good. I would say that honestly, hanging out with friends and cutting up is really easy for me. Yeah. Actually being more serious and getting my point across more seriously, in which it's easier in business versus personal, because when I'm with the client, I know I'm with the client. So I'm gonna talk to my client in the way that I feel like was going to be better, well received, because we're talking about important stuff. When it comes to personal, I might still be conveying something that needs to be maybe said more serious. So now I'm having to acclimate to more something that my wife would more appreciate, because she's like, yes, this is more of a serious conversation. We can't just gloss over the fact that this happened. And I guess my thing is like, did anybody die? You know, and it's like, no, but this is just as serious. I was like, okay, I hear what you said. And so I guess it would be more so just going, hey, I want you to understand that the reason why, you know, this is serious is because of X, Y, Z. And, you know, having those conversations with my sons, you know, it's better to get uncomfortable now rather than in them have them taking the information better rather than also get uncomfortable later and then also have to deal with an attitude of a teenager or even an early 20-year-old, what have you. So I don't try to scare my kids like I felt like my parents tried to. But I do kind of lay it out, and maybe sometimes I might be a little bit more grown, and that's why I catch myself. I catch myself. I was like, am I being like my parents right now? I was like, am I giving you a little bit too much information, a little TMI that maybe I should wait till you're a little bit older, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. Are you more stern? Are you more of a stern dad, like stern? Or when they look at you, they scared. They like, look, not scared to the point where it's like, I'm scared of my dad. I put a sense of fear in my boys. You know, you better not play with daddy. You better not mess with me. That's how I operate with my kids. So like when my youngest go to school, I say, I better not get a call from the teacher. And I look him in his face and I say, and we high five. I say, have a great day, but don't act up. You know, because he knows he don't want to see dad at school. You know, he did. I remember this real quick. Is that I went to him in kindergarten, to his kindergarten class, and my wife couldn't make the Dr. Seuss reading week. So she said, can you go? I said, yeah, I'll go. And I walk in, and my son sees me, and he just, that's what he did. He froze, and he never moved. He didn't know if he was going to have to run out the room or where he was going to have to go. So, because I looked at him with the meanest look to scare him. And then I started smiling, and he knew I was playing with him. But for you as a dad, you know, from what you grew up, are you just more stern dad or you more in the middle?
So I really, I think that every kid, whether you're a son or a daughter, there are certain things that you grew up in your mind. You had the adult talk, meaning, well, when I'm an adult, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna let myself stay up. I'm gonna eat all the McDonald's I want. Whatever it is that you were deprived of as a child, or that your parents said, no, you can't, you're a kid, you can't do that. You know. So we've all got those talks that we gave ourselves as kids. I feel like I am stern. I'm the disciplinarian one of the group. My wife happens to be the guardrails. You know, so I like to be fun, absolutely. But when we do cross that line, it's not just about getting the bass in the voice. It's just kind of like,
I'll lay into you if I have to.
It's like, what's that?
Because you have a young son, 9 and 6. You know, mine is 15 and 8. So I lay into him. And I think that's the thing of us dads that I feel like we have to do. And I feel like you will have less kids getting in trouble. If dads were there who's stern. I was lucky. I tell people all the time, grew up with my father in the home who was stern, loved us, and I catch myself doing some of the same things that he's doing. And my wife like, you can't be like your dad all the time. And I'm like, that really irritates me when she say that. But I do understand I have to be my own self, my own man. I can't live my life around my father. But I use some of his tools to help guide me. So I appreciate your father's story. I want to get into a little bit of mortgage. Of the work that you're doing, and maybe do another part 2 one day.
Absolutely.
On love fatherhood. But tell my audience what made you get into the mortgage arena as an advisor, and we'll dive into that some.
Awesome, thank you. So I was actually a financial advisor before. And it was great. It just I wasn't good at time management. And that was one of the things that, honestly, the biggest loser in all that was my family. You know, I was spending more time at other people's kitchen tables instead of my own.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and that was, you know, just being honest, it kind of came to a head. And, you know, I realized that it was just toxic. So, and it had nothing to do with the industry. That came from my own missteps. And I realized that I needed something that didn't make me absent as I was. So I decided to focus on just one avenue of someone's financial health and wealth. And that was the mortgage industry. So basically mortgages, anything to do with investing, buying your first home, refinancing, all those things. Over the years, I've been able to work with some amazing clients and just I've seen some amazing scenarios. And just, you know, one thing that I think people need to realize about mortgages is that it's not a cut and dry, hey, if you fit in this box, you should be good. Everybody's story is individual to them. You know, so with that being said, that's why I let people know that, like, I got kind of a unique situation. I'm like, yes, I go, that is the one thing that remains true for everybody. It's like, don't copy off your neighbor's work, because at the end of the day, I was like, yours is going to be totally different. But, you know, from what the goals are to what you want to happen down the road, you know, and everything in between, all that needs to be thoughtfully spoken for. And ultimately, you know, that's what made me intrigued by mortgages. You know, I looked at day trading and stocks and bonds, and I was just like, while mortgages are you know, very reflective of the bond market, I was like, stock trading was not for me. So I was like, we're gonna step away from this. So I was blessed to get with a great company and you know, my first handful of years, and they kind of showed me the ropes, and then I just continued to build upon my skill set and just meet some amazing individuals like you and Jim. And over the years, I've been blessed with these relationships to where even if it's not something that I can help them with financially, I usually have somebody amazingly in that position that is there to assist them. So, you know, mortgages just, it continues to make sense, you know.
Well, let me ask you this then. And mortgage rates just went up. It's not at the 3% anymore. People say it's never going to get back there again. Hope so. But has that stopped people from buying because it's in the, what, 6.25 now?
You know,
just want to know, just, I didn't mean to cut you off, but has it just stopped people from really going out here buying houses, or it's just not really a thing?
You know, so there's two camps. There's the people that, you know, will truly kind of get all their news out the internet, or, you know, hey, I saw this, I saw that. I'm like, hey, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we all do it. And then there's the folks that will actually take the time to talk to a professional and say, hey, what's the real lay of the land? So there are some people that have scared themselves out of buying or even refinancing. And then, you know, there's the people. There's always one camp that's never changed is we're gonna wait and see. Is like, hey, it's like, absolutely. You do what makes you happy. You know, just to be honest, I'm a horrible salesman, but I'm a great educator. So like when people are like, they're like, hey, you know, back in the beginning of 2023 and into like the third quarter 2023. Rates were bumpy, and people were like, hey, I heard the rates are good. I'm like, let me guess, you talked to another loan officer? And they're like, yeah. I was like, no. I was like, I can show you. I was like, you know, show them real data of what was not happening, and it wasn't great. And that's what you want. You want somebody that's going to be transparent with you. So yes, you know, one thing that people need to realize is that rates change every day, right? So every week, you know, you could start out really, really great, and by the end of the week, You can have a really bad week, in regards to rates. What I tell folks is, what rate means the most, or, what rates that you need to follow, and then which ones. I go, the ones that you're going to lock on after you go under contract.
Yeah.
I was like, now it's great to get in an environment of knowing, hey, where are they trending right now? And I don't really mean to use that word trending, because that means that they're going to jump on the internet and see what's trending. Yeah. But, really, where have you seen rates here this quarter? Yeah. Where do you expect them to be by the third quarter? I say, hey, that's great. Are you looking to buy in the third quarter? Like, oh, no. I was like, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. First-time home buyers.
Right.
If you was meeting with a first-time home buyer who's really excited about buying their first house, what are probably 3 things they need to consider? I'm not a first-time.
Right.
I done bought 2 houses, and so I'm looking at the third.
Right.
Hopefully. Yeah. Can't come to Thompson Station. I want to come out here. My wife said no, because it's peaceful out here. But first-time home buyers, young couple who's excited, and you meet with them in your office, what are you explaining to them about the do's and don'ts of buying their first house?
Right. Thank you. Absolutely. Number one, and it's just really my biggest one, is know where you stand today, because, even if you're not going to buy for the next 2-3 years, knowing where you stand today, then that is everything. That's your game plan, right? You wouldn't go on a road trip without your trusty GPS on your phone.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I was going to say you wouldn't MapQuest it. Yeah. I'm kind of dating myself here, but
MapQuest. I ain't heard that word in a long time. MapQuest.
Yeah. You just print up the stack of papers, but you wouldn't, if you were going to plan to go on a cruise, you want to make sure you get your passports and everything else. Yeah. The reason why I say all that is because you got to know where you stand today, so that if there's some things that we need to work toward, whether it be credit, whether it be income and assets, or whether it be even a position, I got a lot of great people that started their own jobs after quarantine or COVID, because of things that happened within their careers prior to COVID, and a lot of them went out and started their own businesses, which is amazing, until they went to go want to buy a house, and they're 6 months into that, they're like, oh, I want to buy a house. It's like, why don't you give it another 6 months? And
because they want to see if your income is going to continue to be steady.
Right.
So
that's it.
I was kind of in that same boat, because I run my own nonprofit, but I had W-2s.
Right.
So it shows a steady income stream as well.
Big difference. Yeah.
But that's important, in buying a home as well.
Yeah. And the number 2, would be to, especially with a couple, whether it's married couple or you soon to be married couple, or even boyfriend or girlfriend who they plan on staying together, is that, are we on the same page? A lot of times I'll talk to one spouse or one person in a relationship, and I was like, hey, would love to get the both of you guys on a call, or to sit down with you guys, because you really need to know what the other one is also feeling about the situation. Yeah. Because in my early years, before I knew to do that, I'd have the one spouse, hey, we're ready to roll. I'm like, awesome.
Heck no. That second one come in fired up.
What? It's like, oh, he didn't tell you about the boat that he just bought? I'm like, what? But, getting them both on the same page, and even if it's just a single person looking to invest or purchase for themselves, hey, that's great. Are you the only person that's going to be affected by this financial decision? Yeah. Well, I got my kids too. It's like, hey, that's great. Are you moving because you want to get into the school systems, what have you? And then the third one, it's funny because most people think like, hey, my credit's good and my income and my assets is good. I'm like, hey, that's really the third one. Wow. Because all that can be, repaired or worked on while you're in the process. And I don't mean under contract. I mean, before you get to the actual looking part, because I'll be honest, to all my realtor partners out there, I say this because I love you, but a lot of realtors, they're not wanting to talk to you until you're approved. They don't want to, take you around town. They don't get paid a nickel until you close on that home. So if you're like, you get in their car and you're driving around. It's like, so you already got your pre-approval? And they're like, no, still got to work on my credit. I got to
throw you out the car.
Yeah, they're like, all right, I'm gonna drop you off. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So those are the three things I would say that they should be cognizant of. You know, and even for folks that have bought 2 and 3 houses, that the game has changed, folks, you know, and the one thing that I tell everybody, whether it's your first time or your 15th time buying or refinancing a property, is that the game has changed, and that, you know, a lot of things that used to hold true even just pre-COVID has changed tremendously. And the one thing that remains constant in our industry is that things are always changing.
Yeah, and I think what you said is that things trend up and down. And it's just so important. But we out here at Thompson Station, we talked before we start recording. Yeah. People buying these houses.
That's right.
And these houses out here are beautiful.
Yeah.
And so the GPS, since we talking about, took me a different way here than I'm used to coming. And I'm looking at these houses and I'm like, they're beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Amazing
and
out here.
Different thing. But, you know, that's why I wanted to definitely bring you on as we close out. Just giving people advice of especially those who are buying mortgages and stuff like that. Do you do any advice on refinancing anything?
Absolutely.
One quick thing, give me one advice, the pros and the cons of refinancing with the rates going up now.
Right.
And then we'll close out.
Right. Well, ironically enough, I remember back when the rates were super low. So let's kind of Tarantino this. But back when the rates were super low, I had people reaching out to me and just going, I need a refinance because the rates have gotten so low. And they were sitting at 5s and 6s. And, you know, and on paper, until you dig down deeper, until you actually see the whole picture, you don't realize that they've been in their mortgage for 10 years now. And I was like, actually, and they've been paying more toward the mortgage. I was like, you know, we could do this. I go, but didn't you say that y'all going to move like once the kids get out of high school, and you got a senior, right? A junior and a senior? Like, yeah. So you're telling me that in 2 or 3 years, you guys might not even be living in that house anymore, right? I was like, yeah, that's about right. I was like, hey, we can refinance this. And I'll be honest, I showed them the math and just say the only person that gains anything from this is me. And that's me closing on your loan. And here's why. And then if you show them the math and you show them, here's why maybe we don't do this. That works the same way now, as to where even though that rates have gone up, people go, it probably doesn't make sense for me to refinance, right? You know, I got a 4%, I got a 5%, I got a 3%. I go, yeah, but you got an FHA loan. I go, now your credit has improved, and or, you know, you've got more equity in the home, because people are getting some really nice equity over the last 3 or 4 years. And and now I can say, hey, you know what? Like, it makes sense to get you out of this FHA loan into this conventional loan, drop that PMI. Now your payment's just gone down $200, you know, just by doing that, even though you have a higher rate. And, you know, knowing what the whole picture is everything. Instead of just going, hey, I'll gladly do this loan for you, ask some questions. I got some people that in the beginning we were meant to work together, and it didn't make sense for us to work together. They're some of the best referral partners I got. Wow. Yeah, they refer all their family and friends to me. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, being honest is always a good part. You being honest with them and letting them know what it takes to buy a home, because it's a big investment.
It is. It's the biggest, usually
your biggest investment that you're going to buy. And like I said, going back to fatherhood, my father was like, hey, every man need to buy him a house. Every man need to buy him a house. So when I bought my first house, my father, we was upstairs in the bonus room, and he looked at me. He's like, man, I'm proud of you. And so that meant a lot to me that my father said that. Right. So fatherhood really matters. So, hey, Daniel, I want to thank you, number one, for coming on the show. And just give me your fatherhood story. Because like I said, I forgot we had talked about some of the things that you say you endured. But one thing I am proud of is that you're there for your 2 boys, and you're giving them an opportunity. Number one, to just be a dad, and then enjoying your boys. I enjoy your photos on social media. Some of the funny ones that you've done, that had me laughing. But I think just seeing that shows that you're beginning to turn the circle and say, hey, you know what? yeah, I didn't have my biological father, but I'm gonna break the cycle.
Right.
I'm gonna be there for my 2 kids, and then they're watching you become a husband. They're watching you be a husband. Excuse me, and how you treating your wife.
That's right.
So I always give people advice
Very
on
important.
the podcast is that your kids are always watching you.
That's right.
So even me, sometimes I get fiery at home, and me and my wife debating over shows, and my kids like, break it up. So I was like, all right, let me tone it down.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Keep fighting for fatherhood. And what can people connect with you for mortgage advice before we close out?
Yeah, you guys are welcome to reach out
You
to
can
me.
look at the camera and tell them that, yeah, they need to see you.
Yeah, you guys can reach out to me at Music City Mortgage. My phone number.
Yeah. Anything you want to give out?
727-418-0424. Happy to give you any knowledge or education that you might need in all things finance. I appreciate y'all.
All right. Hey, thank you guys so much for listening to Stronger Than My Father podcast, your most trusted podcast that's centered around fatherhood. If you like what you heard today or hear, make sure my English is correct. Please subscribe to all our social media platforms. And lastly, your financial contribution of $25 a month will help keep this show on the air as we continue to bring more awareness to fatherhood. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Jim, for allowing us to use the studio. I really appreciate that. God bless you. And come back to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast real soon. Jim, I'm tired. I'm just flowing off the back of my head. Hey, come back and listen to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. Every Tuesday, a new episode to bring more awareness to fatherhood. God bless you. See you later.
Yeah.